Hey everyone, Jeff Lee here, coming to you from IBC 2017. I'm in the Panasonic booth, joined by Luc Barra, who is the Cinema Product Manager for the European group. Behind me, of course, we have the EVA-1. Now, we spoke to Mitch Gross in the US at Cinegear when the EVA-1 was first announced. At the time, since it's so new, they hadn't had a lot of time or opportunity to divulge some of the information, but now a little further along in development, there's some new information that Luc can share with us. So first of all, Luc, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Jeff.
So at the time, when I spoke to Mitch, he didn't yet have the dual native ISO specifications yet. But now, of course, you've been able to release the information, correct?
Yeah, exactly. It was under study, but now we know it's 800 and 2500. Right. So it's a bit different than VariCam. VariCam is 800 and 5000. Actually it's a different balance. And the VariCam sensor, it's a 4K sensor, and EVA-1 is a 5.7K sensor. So you have a bit more resolution, a bit less sensitivity, and VariCam is a bit more sensitivity and less resolution.
So I think what's important to remind everyone too is that although it is not the same sensor as the VariCam or the LT, your intent is to design it to have the same aesthetic of the VariCam, to complement it. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually the sensor was designed by Panasonic, and it is the same Panasonic VariCam engineer team who worked on the EVA. So we have the same color science, we have the same, actually on the sensor we have the same color space exactly. We have the same Bayer filter, we have the same log curve, so it means the VariCam sensor and EVA sensor are very close to each other. I mean, in post-production you can use the same LUT, you can use the same, we provide a IDT for AC's workflow, and it works very well for both cameras. So you can save a lot of time in post-production if you want to work with the VariCam as a camera A and EVA as a camera B.
Right, so obviously not just designed to complement the VariCam, but as a standalone camera, it certainly stands on its own legs, right? So you guys made this a different resolution, so 5.7K over the 4K, say, on the VariCam. Can you describe briefly what your intention was with going with a higher resolution than 4K?
But the idea is when you have a single sensor, if the sensor is 4K, at the end you have your file is 4K, but what you can actually see on the picture, you cannot see 2000. It should be 2160 lines. But if you look at a chart, a resolution chart, you cannot see that, because to have a real 4K resolution, you should have either a 3 sensor or a single sensor with more resolution than 4K. So what we intended to do on the EVA is to have more than 4K resolution on the sensor, to have a real 4K resolution on the picture. And now we can achieve 2000 lines, that we can really measure 2000 lines on an oscilloscope or when you shoot a chart.
So future-proofing it for 4K production and beyond, obviously for Netflix and all those other environments. Great. So obviously full gamut of the vlog support, and Panasonic RAW option as well coming. Anything else you could tell us about it in terms of development phase from back at Cinegear in June or July till now? What else have you guys, the scientists, have worked out?
But I did some tests on the camera, and there's some very nice thing, especially with I was very surprised with the scene files, because most of people are shooting log, but in this in this range of camera, a lot of people don't want to shoot log because they don't have time, because they are not sure they will get the best result, because they are not good colorists, etc. So we have in the camera, we have 2 other curves. We have Vlog and we have EVA-Look-1, EVA-Look-2, which have the same dynamic range, but with 2 different looks, and you can adjust everything, just like on a broadcast camera. You can do multi-matrix, you can adjust all the colors, the needs, the details, just like a broadcast. So you can do the color grading. I mean, you can create your own scene file, shoot with it. So it's much better because you can adjust the exposure and see immediately the result. With the log, usually people don't know exactly how to expose, and sometimes they have bad surprise after. And these scene file settings are really amazing. You can really create your look in the camera. There is another thing that is really interesting. It's electronic image stabilizer. It's called EIS. So if you have a lens that has a OIS, you can use it. But if you don't, you can use the EIS, and the electronic stabilizer it's like what you would do in post-production.
Sure.
So it crops a bit in the sensor, and it can compensate the movement of the camera. But as we have a 5.7K sensor, even after cropping, we lose 15-20% of the picture, but it's still more than 4K.
Right.
So you still have a great resolution and perfect stabilization.
Now, can you keep the full 5.7K when you turn on the electronic image stabilizer, or do you just lose it because it's doing the stabilization internally?
Actually, when you shoot without the EIS, you always record 4K. You never record 5.7K. The 5.7K are used to get more resolution in the 4K file, but at the end it's a 4K file. So with or without the EIS, you will have the same file, the same bitrate, the same weight.
Okay.
It's just a matter of resolution you can see on the picture. And honestly, it's I couldn't see really the difference.
And I actually really appreciate that, because coming from someone who does a lot more doc work than cine work, although you can shoot 5.7K and you could do stabilization in post, you're allowing people to use the scene files, which you mentioned, plus the EIS. So now they're doing more of a doc style shoot, so they don't need to worry about the post stabilization. So I think that's really valuable to be able to offer both. So kudos to Panasonic on coming up with that concept, and it's really valuable, I think, to a lot of the shooters who are used to cameras like this, and that's kind of where our bread and butter was as well. Great. So we know obviously Canon EF mount. We know expected date is around October or November, late October for shipping.
End of October, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's finally great to see one with menus on this. First time I've actually seen it with the menus and electronics turned on, so it's exciting for me as well personally. So Luke, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for giving us the overview. We appreciate it. This is Jeff Lee, again joined by Luke Barra from Panasonic, coming to you from IBC. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.